Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Bumblebee raced across the barren plains of Cybertron, the desolate landscape reflecting the devastation of a once glorious world. The distant glow of crumbling towers and ruins, remnants of a forgotten era, dotted the horizon. His processor buzzed with urgency. The message from Optimus Prime played in his mind on a loop. Bumblebee, Megatron seeks the last key. If he finds it, Cybertron, Sci-Fate will be sealed. The key, an ancient artifact that could focus the planet's energy into one being, granting its wielder unimaginable power. Bumblebee couldn't allow Megatron to possess it. As he sped across the wasteland, fragments of the legend surfaced in his memory bank. It was said the Primes had hidden the key long ago, fearing the corruption such power could bring. Only one worthy of Cybertron's salvation could unlock it. The idea that Megatron believed himself worthy chilled Bumblebee to his core. His alt mode, a sleek armored vehicle, glided smoothly over the rough terrain, yet his mind remained anything but calm. Ever since the war between Autobots and Decepticons began, Bumblebee had faced countless battles. But this one felt different. This wasn't just about Cybertron's future, it was about its soul. Suddenly, a flash of light in the sky caught his attention. Bumblebee screeched to a halt, transforming fluidly into his robotic form. His optics zoomed in on the source of the light, a flare of energy emanating from a nearby mountain range. Megatron, Bumblebee muttered, instinctively gripping his blaster. He knew that surge of power. It was Megatron's signature. The mountain range ahead, known as the Iron Spire, was ancient and foreboding. Legends told of hidden temples deep within its core, remnants of the first Prime's legacy. If Megatron had tracked the key here, time was running out. Bumblebee transformed back into his vehicle mode and sped toward the mountains, his scanners searching for any signs of the Decepticon. The radio crackled as he picked up faint transmission, static-filled but unmistakable. Megatron was already ahead, pushing deeper into the mountain's interior. As Bumblebee approached the entrance of an old mine shaft, his scanners detected movement. He transformed, creeping silently toward the cavern's mouth, readying his weapons. Shadows flickered along the rock walls. Decepticon patrol. Bumblebee crouched low, watching as two large Decepticons break down and Dead End stood guard. Their conversation was hushed, but Bumblebee had says, enhanced audio receptors picked up every word. This place gives me the creeps. Breakdown, crumble, ancient temples, hidden power. Why does Megatron need all this when we could just crush the Autobots like before? Dead End shrugged. Megatron's always thinking ahead. He doesn't want to just win the war. He wants to rule everything Cybertron, the Autobots, the universe. Bumblebee's sparks surged with dread. This wasn't just about control. It was about domination on a cosmic scale. If Megatron succeeded in obtaining the key, there would be no stopping him. Silently, Bumblebee fired a precision shot, striking Dead End squarely in the chest. The Decepticon collapsed before he even knew what hit him. Breakdown barely had time to turn before Bumblebee lunged, slamming his fist into the Decepticon, set with a crack of metal against metal. Breakdown fell unconscious, leaving Bumblebee alone in the silence of the cavern's entrance. He stepped over the fallen guards and entered the dark tunnel. The air was thick with dust, and the sound of his footsteps echoed ominously. As he moved deeper, the walls began to shift, changing from rough stone to smooth, intricately carved surfaces. The deeper he went, the more he felt the weight of Cybertron, sentient history, pressing down on him. Bumblebee's sensors flared as he reached a massive, ornately designed door, clearly of Cybertronian origin, but far older than anything he had ever seen. Symbols of the Primes were etched into the surface, glowing faintly with energy. The door pulsed with a strange, almost hypnotic hum. He reached out, placing his hand against the door, and felt a surge of energy ripple through his circuit. A vision flashed before him, images of the Primes, a vast power contained within the key and the terrifying consequences of its misuse. He could feel the weight of their warning. This power was never meant to be wielded by one alone. Suddenly, a deep voice boomed from behind him. "You too late, Bumblebee." Bumblebee spun around, his optics narrowing there. Standing in the shadowy entrance of the chamber was Megatron, his eyes glowing with malevolent intensity. "Megatron," Bumblebee growled, raising his blaster, step away from the door. Megatron chuckled, his towering form advancing slowly, confidently. "Do you really think you can stop me, Bumblebee? You are but a scout, a mere foot soldier." This key belongs to those with the strength to wield it, and soon I will unlock the full potential of Cybertron. Bumblebee held his ground, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't defeat Megatron in a head-on fight. But he had one advantage: he had been chosen by Optimus Prime for a reason. Not because of his size or power, but because of his heart, his determination. The Prime's trials weren't about strength alone, they were about wisdom and purpose. With a sudden burst of speed, Bumblebee fired his blaster at the ceiling, causing a section of rock to collapse between him and Megatron. Dust and debris filled the chamber, giving Bumblebee a brief moment of cover. He darted toward the door, pressing his hand against the Prime's symbols once more. The energy surged through him again, stronger this time, guiding him. Behind him, Megatron roared in frustration, tearing through the rubble with brute force. "You cannot hide from me, Bumblebee. You are nothing compared to the power of the Decepticon." Bumblebee's hand glowed as he connected with the ancient technology. The door began to open, revealing a narrow passageway beyond. He wasted no time, slipping through the crack just as Megatron's massive fist slammed against the door. The passageway was narrow and winding, lit only by the faint glow of ancient Cybertronian ruin. As he raced through the labyrinthine tunnels, Bumblebee's mind flashed back to the stories of the Primes, the ancient guardians of Cybertron, who had once ruled the planet with wisdom and strength. They had hidden the key for a reason. Its power was too great for any one being to possess. But now that power was within reach of Megatron. Bumblebee's scanners detected the energy signature of the key up ahead. He rounded a corner and entered a vast chamber, its ceiling stretching high above, lined with massive statues of the Prime. In the center of the room, resting on a pedestal, was the key itself, a gleaming, intricately designed object that seemed to pulse with the energy of the planet itself. Bumblebee approached cautiously, his optics scanning for traps or defenses. But the chamber was eerily quiet, as if waiting for something or someone. Just as he reached for the key, the ground trembled. Megatron burst into the chamber, his red optics glowing with fury. "You think you can take what belongs to me, Bumblebee?" Megatron's voice echoed through the chamber, filled with venomous rage. He raised his arm, ready to strike. Bumblebee grabbed the key just as Megatron lunged, barely dodging the Decepticon's side attack. The room erupted into chaos as Megatron's powerful strikes sent shockwaves through the ground, shaking the statues of the Prime. Bumblebee knew he couldn't hold out much longer. He needed to destroy the key before Megatron could use it. But how the key's power surged in his hand, almost too much for his circuits to bear. Bumblebee's processor raced as he gripped the key, feeling the raw energy pulsing through it. His circuits struggled to contain the immense power. He couldn't allow this to fall into Megatron's hands. If the Decepticon leader used it, Cybertron would be lost. But how could he destroy something so ancient and powerful? Megatron advanced, his massive frame casting a dark shadow across the chamber. "Hand it over, Bumblebee. You are unworthy of such power. The key belongs to me." Bumblebee's optics darted around the room. The statues of the Primes loomed, their silent faces watching over the scene. It was as if they were waiting for something, as if they knew the fate of Cybertron rested on this moment. Bumblebee had always looked up to Optimus Prime, but now, standing in the chamber of the ancient leaders, he realized the responsibility that had been placed on him. He wasn't just a scout anymore. He was the last defense against Megatron's ambition. Megatron lunged again, his massive fist slamming into the floor just inches from Bumblebee. The impact sent a shockwave through the chamber, shaking the walls and causing dust to fall from the ceiling. Bumblebee rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike, but he knew he couldn't keep dodging forever. His body was built for speed, not endurance, and Megatron's strength would soon overwhelm him. But then something caught Bumblebee's attention, the key still glowing in his hand, pulsed with a strange rhythm. It wasn't just a source of power, it was responding to him, to his will. He needed to destroy it. He needed to unlock its true potential. Bumblebee's mind flashed with memories, moments of triumph and sacrifice, of battles won and lost. He thought of the countless Autobots who had fought for Cybertron's freedom, and of Optimus Prime's unwavering belief in him. The key's power wasn't just about controlling energy. It was about purpose, about the strength to protect what mattered most. He looked up at Megatron, who was preparing for another strike. "You think power is what makes you worthy, Megatron. You will never understand what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. Megatron sneered, raising his arm to deliver a crushing blow. Spare me your speeches, Bumblebee. You are nothing compared to me. Bumblebee acted in a split second, channeling the key's energy into his body. His circuits flared with light as the ancient power surged through him. The statues of the Primes seemed to react, their eyes glowing faintly, as if acknowledging his decision. As Megatron's fist came crashing down, Bumblebee met it head-on. The impact sent a wave of energy through the chamber, knocking Megatron back. The Decepticon leader roared in fury, struggling to regain his footing. Bumblebee staggered, his systems overloaded by the sheer force of the key's power, but he held his ground. The energy from the key was overwhelming, but it was also guiding him. He could feel the connection to the planet, to the very core of Cybertron itself. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a part of their history, their legacy. Megatron's optics flared with rage as he pushed forward again. You cannot defeat me, Bumblebee. The key's power will be mine. Bumblebee knew he couldn't hold on to the key's energy much longer. His circuits were already at their limit, but he didn't need to. The key had shown him what to do. In one final, desperate move, Bumblebee raised the key high above his head, focusing all the energy he had into a single point. The ground beneath them began to shake violently, cracks forming in the floor as the energy surged through the ancient structure. Megatron's expression shifted from rage to realization. So, what are you doing? Bumblebee's voice was steady, though his body trembled from the strain. I'm ending this, Megatron. This power doesn't belong to you. It belongs to Cybertron. With a final burst of strength, Bumblebee channeled the key's energy into the core of the temple. The ground beneath them split open, and a brilliant light erupted from the fissure, filling the chamber with blinding energy. The statues of the Primes glowed brightly, their ancient forms seemingly coming to life as they absorbed the power of the key. Megatron roared in defiance, trying to fight against the torrent of energy, but it was too late. The key's power was no longer his to claim. The temple itself had become a conduit for the planet, energy neutralizing the threat that the key once posed. Bumblebee collapsed to the floor, his systems flickering as the overload of energy finally took its toll. He had done it. The key was no longer a danger, but as the light began to fade, he could hear Megatron's voice, weak but still filled with fury. This isn't over, Bumblebee. You've only delayed the inevitable. Bumblebee struggled to stand, his body battered and his circuits sparking. He watched as Megatron staggered toward the exit, his pride wounded, but his ambition still intact. The Decepticon leader might have been driven away for now, but Bumblebee knew he would return. Megatron always did. As the last of the light faded, the temple grew silent once more. The statues of the Primes stood still, their eyes dimming as the energy dissipated. Bumblebee looked around the chamber, feeling the weight of what had just happened. The key, the power it represented, was no longer a threat, but the fight for Cybertron was far from over. He slowly made his way out of the temple, his steps heavy with exhaustion. Outside, the sky was dark, the stars barely visible through the haze of Cybertron's atmosphere. Bumblebee transformed into his vehicle mode and began the long journey back to the Autobot base, his mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. As he drove through the wasteland, the words of Optimus Prime echoed in his mind. You have always been more than just a scout, Bumblebee. You are a symbol of hope. Hope, that was what Cybertron needed, now more than ever. Megatron's quest for power would continue, but so would the Autobots' fight to protect their world. Bumblebee knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but he was ready. He had proven to himself and to the Primes that he was worthy of the responsibility placed on it. And as long as there was hope, there was always a chance for victory.